Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know last time I spoke with you about the loss of our triplets, and so I would like to tell you what happened after that. And so let's get started. I found out that we lost our triplets, and then that day I went home and spoke with my husband about if we were going to try and pass the babies naturally or if I was going to go in and get a D&C. The tough part was that in my heart I thought, there's three, one of them still has to be okay, they're wrong, and I don't believe that this could happen to us, and it's got to be a mistake. So I was definitely scared to take any pills to abort the babies, and I kept pushing to get more ultrasounds, and they definitely wanted my body to try and pass them naturally because they thought then that might get my cycle started again on its own naturally, and then we could get things going again if we wanted to move forward. And I just at that point said, nope, I want another ultrasound. And so they got me in for another ultrasound the following week. And when you're going through something like this, time just stops. I feel like minutes turn into hours, and you are just in so much pain. You don't feel like it's ever gonna end. And so I just remember that week felt like months waiting for this ultrasound. And then when I went in there, I just remember him saying, no, don't expect anything. And he actually had a student with him, and she seemed, very aware of my situation, and she was very helpful in, getting me on the table, very empathetic, and so it was really nice to have her there. And we did the ultrasound. It came back, there was still no heartbeat, so I was a mess. I just remember going into the waiting room telling my mother-in-law, because she went with me that day, that there was no heartbeats. And I know everybody in the waiting room was just in tears because I was a wreck, and they didn't even know me, but they could feel what I was going through just by seeing me. And I'm sure a lot of them going through the infertility journey and probably experiencing similar situations, loss and infertility and suffering in silence, and I'm sure that they could relate and they felt my pain. So leaving the IVF clinic that day, I then needed to make an appointment with an OBGYN, and when I started this process, I loved my OBGYN, and she actually switched practices and no longer took my insurance because I'd been at the IVF clinic for so long. So I had to find a new doctor, and she referred one in our area that took my insurance, and I definitely was scared to go to a new doctor who didn't know my situation, who I didn't know, who I didn't feel comfortable with. And I just remember going in there and telling her, I want to get a D&C. I want this done. I want to move forward. If I don't, get this done, I'm not going to be able to move forward with my life for a while. And you kind of feel at that point like you're freaking out, like this isn't right, this didn't happen to me, and if you get the D&C, then you're not pregnant anymore. People aren't asking you how you're doing, how is the baby doing, because at that point it was just one when people knew. And it's just, I was showing, because I was pregnant with triplets, so even though it was really early on, a lot of people could tell, and they were asking me, you know, and people that I knew at work, and it was just really a really tough situation, and I just wanted it to be over. And I felt like if I got the D&C, it would be over, like I could move on. And so I really pushed for that, and she scheduled it out 2 weeks after that. So at that point, if I didn't lose the babies on my own, then it would be 3 weeks that I was still pregnant with our triplets, even though they had no heartbeats. And it's just something that I wouldn't wish on anybody, because it's one of the hardest things I ever did, was to have to go on being pregnant knowing what the end outcome was gonna be. And I just remember that day scheduling the D&C and telling my husband I set it up. I don't think that we're gonna lose these babies on our own. So it came to the night that we were supposed to go get the D&C, and they give you a pill to loosen up your cervix, or soften your cervix, I should say. And I took the pill, went to bed, and was really scared for what was to come, but was ready for what was to come that following morning. And I just remember that night waking up in so much pain, and I said to my husband, I can't take it, we gotta go to the emergency room. He's like, no, hold out, you get your D&C in the morning. And I'd been having contractions on and off that whole week, but just nothing was happening. And so I just got to the point where it was so painful, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. And I just remember when I got out of bed, it was like, oh my God, there was blood everywhere. And I was like, it's happening. It's happening here. I didn't want it to happen here. I'm scared. I have to pass 3 babies. What if something goes wrong? I wanted to be at the hospital. I have all these fears and thoughts in my mind. Nobody told me what to expect, and I was just scared. And so I was like, we need to go now. And at that point, when I turned the light on and he saw everything, he said, yes, let's change your clothes, let's go. And so I just remember getting in the car, and it just was a really scary situation because I was bleeding so much and I didn't think that was normal. And I grabbed a bucket because I started puking because I was just in so much pain. And I remember getting to the hospital, and he picked me up, put me in a wheelchair, and they took me right back when I told them, I'm losing our triplets. I was supposed to get a D&C this morning. I still want to get the D&C. And I'm like, I just wanted to be knocked out. I didn't want to have to go through this, wake up, and just, not have gone through this on my own naturally. My thought process was it would be easier for me to grieve if I didn't have to go through this naturally, if I could just get put to sleep and wake up and then be like, okay, you're gonna hurt for a few days, but you'll be good to go, in a couple weeks. Take it easy. And then in my mind, I, prepared for that. I didn't prepare for naturally passing as, our triplets. So it was really hard at that point. Every time they would come in, I'd be like, did I you know, did I pass the baby yet? Did I pass a baby yet? Is anything happening? You know, and so they sent me up for an ultrasound, and at that point I did pass one. There was only 2 in there, and then they were worried because I had so much bleeding and I only had passed 1, so they prepared for a transfusion, and they got the doctor right in and wanted to get me up and do the D&C. So they went in, took me up, did the D&C, and I just remember like waking up still in quite a bit of pain and still having quite a bit of bleeding. And I guess finally a couple hours later things calmed down and they never ended up having to do a transfusion. And you just go home, and it's just a tough situation. People don't know what to say, and there's nothing that they can say at that point to make it better. Just time will make it better. Time, you know, with yourself, with your husband, with your family, and time to grieve. So at that point I had some people that I knew that were, you know, building their families, and they were pregnant, and that was just really tough for me to cope with. I got really jealous, and I just remember that you know, how angry I was, I guess. I remember, like, you know, thinking, well, if they can have that, well, why can't I have that? You know, what did I ever do in my life not to be able to have that? So then it made me question, you know, my beliefs, and I definitely tried to push my husband away, and he pushed back. He did not let me push him away, and he was constantly there for me. He was amazing, and I am so grateful that he was there for me during all of that. I couldn't have imagined going through that without him, and so I'm very lucky, very, very lucky to have him by my side, especially through times of need like that. And so I actually pushed for testing to be done. When I had my D&C, they can take you know, a swab of, I guess you could say, the skin, and send it in for testing. And they did that, and it came back that the babies had trisomy 8, and that is a chromosomal defect. And it was just really hard. The doctor was really shocked. She just thought it was a fluke, and when you do IVF, you know, and you get pregnant with multiples, let's say I'm pregnant with triplets, so the possibility of something going wrong then is times by 3. So it raises it quite a bit. And so she just thought, you know, that is what happened. But when she found out that it was trisomy 8, she told me that it will always affect us getting pregnant, and we just need to stop. We don't need to do IVF again, and it won't end good. And she just really pushed and pushed us to go see a genetic specialist. But she just said they'll tell us more in depth about it and what it is. But I was very angry, and I was like, no, I'm not giving up. I haven't been through all of this to give up. I will, you know, get pregnant one day. I was determined. So I had to talk to my husband, and we had to decide if we were going to try IVF again. And from that point, he was genuinely scared, and I was just determined. I wasn't scared because I felt like I've been through the worst. What more can happen? Let's keep pushing through. Let's do this. And so we met with our IVF specialist, went over the Trisomy 8 results, and he suggested that we do not use our own embryos, that we use donor embryos, which are embryos that people donate to their clinic who are done trying to build their family but do not want to toss their embryos away. So they donate them to the clinic so other people can, you know, use them to build their family. So it's a kind of a really cool thing. They make profiles and you can go through and pick a profile based on, you know, their history, what they do for a living. I mean, if you're interested in them looking similar to you, I guess. So we decided to pick a profile that really stood out to us, and we were excited to get the process started. We had to go in and get my uterus cleaned out like you do at the beginning of every round, just to get things started and to make sure that you have a clean slate. And we went in that day and I had to get another full D&C. And usually the IVF doctor does not do this, but in my case he had no choice, because when he went in to just check everything and just to scrape the uterus wall so that the embryo could attach better and have a higher chance of us conceiving, then he found out that there was still tissue left from my first D&C and a lot of scar tissue, which was very alarming to him. So he wanted to go ahead and just do the full D&C all over again. So when I woke up, I was in quite a bit of pain, actually, a lot more than I expected, and I didn't understand what was going on at first. So he came and talked to me and told me what was going on and why he had to go that route. And I was just worried now, like, that their scar tissue, is it gonna affect us, you know, getting pregnant again, possibly, and is there a chance that the embryos are not going to stick, and is this going to push the procedure back of putting in our donor embryos? And he said no, we would keep going now that we have everything cleaned out. I might just be a little sore for a while longer than I planned on being, and we would stay on the same route as if I was just going in for getting my uterus scraped. So that was exciting. I was thrown back a little bit, I guess, because I thought I was kind of done with that. I don't know what you could say, done with that process. Like, you know, I thought I could have completely moved forward, and I know you never completely move forward, but you know, for physically I thought I could move forward, and then being knocked down again was pretty traumatic. I was just thrown back into the grieving process. I came home and was pretty mad that my OBGYN messed up the first D&C, because she should have gotten everything. I should not have had to have another one. And if he would not have found that, I probably would have hemorrhaged sooner or later, because there was still quite a bit of scar tissue in there, which is a very scary thought. You hear of that happening every once in a while, and I just felt like it was the worst case scenario, but I'm so glad that he was on my team, you know, and he caught that for me. So that definitely helped. So we went ahead a couple weeks later and had the donor embryos implanted, and we just had to wait. So this is the hardest part, as I've already told you, and I am not a patient person. Alright, so if you guys would like to wait with me, this is already going to be a pretty long video, and I appreciate you joining me on my journey to find out if the donor embryos took or not. Please join me next time. See you soon.